And obviously the Mets got blasted last night, so they're going out with a total whimper. And it's really sad, actually, what's happened to that team and just how it has just fallen off the rails. They have fallen off the rails. They're done. But the Yankees here now have 9 games left. And guess what? They have their $300 million pitcher starting this series Friday night at Boston. And they have the 3 teams in front of them that they're chasing, essentially, even though Toronto's a little bit behind them by just a game, I guess, in the win column. But when I look at this and I look at the Yankees and I say, okay, they're getting Severino back, they're getting Herman back, they're getting Garrett Cole to start off this 9-game series. He may end up pitching 3 more times. So I know he's going to pitch here. I know that he will pitch against the Toronto Blue Jays, and there's a chance, I guess, on 4 days rest, if they need that last game of the year against Tampa at home at Yankee Stadium, there's a chance he could be pitching that game. And if he does pitch that game and they do win that game and they end up making it to the wild card, he will not be available for the wild card.
Right.
Which is a real kind of unique situation.
It is. I mean, I don't know how unique, because there's been a lot of teams that battle for this final wild card, and it's like, what's the point of saving a guy if we're not going to be in the game anyway? So the Yankees do need to pitch Garrett Cole whenever, because this thing's going to go right down to the wire. And it's great that they beat up on the Texas Rangers, and that's what they needed to do. That's what they asked. They delivered. But I will not be able to take the Yankees seriously again until they start beating up on these 2 teams in their division that they're facing coming up next in the Red Sox and Blue Jays. Now, I know that back in the 13-game winning streak, they did beat up on the Boston Red Sox, but the last time we saw them take on the Blue Jays, which is the series after the Boston series, I mean, they got smoked. So it's cute when you beat the worst teams in baseball, and that's great, and you get healthy and you get right. But the Red Sox are on a tear right now. They're not losing. And you did get the Blue Jays losing the Rays last night pretty significantly, 7-1, I believe it was. But I mean, let's now see it. So these guys coming back, and all right, we're getting healthy, and our Garrett Cole had a bad start last time. It's not going to happen again. Well, if you want to believe that the Yankees actually have a run in them to make it to a World Series, then beat these teams. Well, now they're ahead of the Blue Jays, but beat these teams in your division, beat them significantly, flex your muscles like it was a 13-game winning streak, and make everybody believe. Because I don't think there's a lot of Yankee fans that believe in this team right now. I think they're scared that they're going to miss the playoffs, and then who the hell knows what's going to happen in the offseason.
Well, all I can tell you is that they're relatively healthy. You know, obviously Zach Britton's not there, but they're relatively healthy everywhere. And you know, good for them last night that Gleyber Torres came through in a big spot, because he did not come through in a spot before that. That was a big spot with the bases loaded. He struck out. But last night he has the double, and then Gary Sanchez hits a home run. I mean, so you got to be happy for those guys, given all that they've been through this season. And now it's like, when you listen to like Gleyber Torres give an interview after the game, I mean, he's such a likable guy. I mean, like, you want him to do well. And then you wonder, like, after you listen to him, why does he have these dips? And I don't know how else to explain it, but how does he have the dips in focus? You know, I know he's a young kid, and I know that, you know, it feels like he's been here for 30 years.
Yeah, but when he was younger, he felt like he was more of a veteran than he is now. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense. When we first saw Gleyber Torres, the things we were saying is there's not a moment too big for him. Look at this guy. He's a leader already. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, I think part of the reason why they moved him back to second base was to get his mind right. But it's one of the weirder ones I can remember, because you're talking about a guy who was on a fast track to superstardom, who was going to be with the Yankees for 20 years in the middle of that infield, to someone that you don't even know if he's going to be on the team next year.
Yeah, this is this 9-game little end of season, 3 games with each of these teams in your division. It's great that Major League Baseball did this, and it just turns out that they're playing exactly at the right time. They're all playoff games. They're all playoff games. For the Yankees and the Red Sox, they're playoff games, and hopefully for the Yankees and the Blue Jays, they'll be playoff games. Remember, the Blue Jays now, this is where, you know, their schedule kind of lightens up a little bit, and they will see the Yankees, of course, but for the Red Sox and the Yankees to end the season like this, basically right on top of each other in the wild card running, and to have these games up in Fenway Park, this is where legends are made. This is where either legends are made or people fall in their face. And, the Yankee fan has expectations going into this game. You have a $300 million pitcher who just got hammered by the Cleveland Indians coming back now, and he's going to pitch in this series, and he's going to pitch against the Blue Jays. The reason that he is here, the reason that he is getting that money is for situations just like this that ultimately will either, if he falls on his face, man, I felt, you think Susan was like, what are these people thinking about? You haven't heard anything yet. I mean, this is the moment where, the Andy Pettits of the world, the Mariano Rivera's of the world, Roger Clemens, even when he was here, these are where these guys basically built their reputations and their legacies. And, Garrett Cole really hasn't had an opportunity to do that yet. This is it now. This is the moment that Yankee fan has been waiting for. This is the moment that Judge and Stanton and Gallo and Rizzo, and I don't know what's going to happen with Luke Voigt. I don't know if he's going to get an opportunity here. But this is the moment now where all of these guys have an opportunity to now forget all the bad stuff that happened this year and leave a legacy behind. That's how important these 9 games are, and that's how important for at least Garrett Cole Friday night is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the opportunity that you want to have even when you've had all the struggles throughout the year, and it could go horribly wrong like a lot of this season has. It could end up going great, and this team could go on some sort of spectacular run. I mean, I think probably the best that this team can do from what I've seen so far. Now, if they go out and they go on a tear and destroy Boston, destroy Toronto, and then all of a sudden they're winning 11-2 every single night, then maybe I'll change my mind.
That's
because baseball's so up and down. But you're right, it's probably not going to happen. But I think the best that this team can do is get that wild card berth, then win that game, then get into the ALDS, and then probably lose there. And then it gets really confusing what you do into the offseason, because you say, all right, you made it into the playoffs, you went on a run there, you did what you had to do at the end of the regular season, but you're still not good enough. You're still not a championship team, which is what you aspired to be every single year. But if they end up choke job city, and I know you hate that, but if they end up choking and not making it, and you see 3 teams in the AL East in the playoffs in some way, shape, or form, whether you'll have the Rays winning the division, and then you have the Blue Jays and the Red Sox in there. I mean, you think that's going to sit well with anybody in that Yankees organization? Absolutely not. Fourth place?
So, no, it's not. And here's the thing. So we just came through that 13-game series, or schedule, and it started with the Mets and it ended with the Texas Rangers. Do you remember what I asked you? What you thought the record had to be in those 13 games?
Yeah, I mean, I said it had to be 10-3 at the worst. I thought 11-2 would certainly get it done. 10-3 was the way it needed to happen. Right. I thought 10-3 was the right number.
So they were 8-5.
Yeah, not good enough.
8-5 in those 13 games.
But they're still right there.
Yeah, but the reason I looked at those games is because I looked at the other schedules that the other teams are playing.
Yeah.
And I know it's baseball, Susan, but it doesn't matter. We knew that the Red Sox were playing the Mets, and they blasted the Mets. And it was almost like, to a T, to a predictive T, that you knew that was going to happen. And, the Red Sox have been on fire lately. And now you are getting a team that's on fire. And I guess you're only as good as the next day pitcher, as they always say in Major League Baseball. And you have the most expensive pitcher on the mound, who was brought here for moments like this.
Yeah, who ended up being somehow the face of Spider Tack early on in the season, and I know that he recalibrated himself and was pretty damn good for most of the year, so much so that he's in the conversation for the Cy Young, but nobody's going to remember anything that Garrett Cole did if his last handful of starts in the regular season are all thuds and duds.
You know that when the Cleveland Indians came in here, they had the lowest payroll in baseball. The lowest payroll in baseball. Like 48
even less than
million.
The Pirates?
$48 million.
Wow. Yeah, Garrett Cole makes that a year, doesn't he?
Well, he makes that. Yeah, I feel like he does. But the point is that he and the Yankees lost 2 out of 3 to the lowly Indians. I mean, and that's the kind of thing that just drives fans crazy. I know it drove us crazy as Met fans when the Mets would lose to the Pirates at the end of the first half, and then at the beginning of the second half. Remember, this is the part of the schedule where the Mets really got to make a move here.
Yeah,
what you got to do here. You got to beat these bad teams, these teams that suck, that have over 100 losses, and yet the Yankees, lose to the Cleveland Indians. They lose to the Baltimore Orioles. And the Baltimore Orioles, lost over 100 games. So you know exactly where this team, if they just would have beaten the teams they were supposed to beat consistently. I'm not saying you're going to beat every team every game, because every team is going to have issues, especially with the pitching staff. And now that the Yankees are starting to get healthy, the real question is it too little too late, or will guys live up to their contracts in these significant times against these teams? That's really what this comes down to. That's why this is so fascinating for me, because this is why they were brought here. This is why they are paid the big bucks. And the other thing, just speaking of big bucks, I don't know how you take this, and this comes out of the Mets.
You talking about Lindor?
Yeah, so Lindor, I appreciate his honesty. It sucks. We fell apart. I didn't play well. He took a lot of it on himself. So I appreciate that, and I think that is a very professional thing to do. But then he was also talking about Javi Baez and how Steve Cohen has enough money to sign Javi Baez. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. I feel like I'm sick to my stomach over that.
Well, yeah. It's just another example of not understanding where he is, not understanding the fan base, not understanding the New York fan. You want to talk to us and tell us how much you were terrible this year and it's not going to happen again, and take some accountability and ownership of this horrible season that nobody saw coming, then great. Well, listen, we're not going to be happy, but great. But now don't sit there and say, my best friend's got to be here because we have a rich owner. My best friend will also put the thumbs down to the fans and seems to hate the fan base. I don't want to hear that now. And it's the same thing like, with Pete Alonso when he was asked, and I like Pete a lot, but that whole thing of pay Francisco Lindor $400 million. He deserves it. Like, this is the press conference stuff. It's none of your business. It really is not any of your business what's going on with somebody else's contract. So if you really wanted to take some accountability yesterday, if you're Francisco Lindor, stop at I was terrible. It was a lot on me. We weren't any good. We collapsed. Don't start talking to me about how the owner's a skazillionaire and he should sign everybody so the two of you guys can ride off into the sunset with your $400 million contracts and then basically be a third-place team for the rest of your lives. So I'm with you on that. I didn't hear him say it. I did read it this morning. I'm sure Jerry has it. Sometimes listening to it changes my opinion, but I have a feeling that I'm not going to change my opinion on it at all.
No, it's not going to change my opinion either. I mean, the fact that they're talking about what they should be paid or what they think they should be paid after a season that has been so disappointing and has been an absolute collapse job makes it really hard to stomach those comments. The other comments I can live with, and I can say, yeah, that's great, and I appreciate the awareness, and maybe you're trying to get yourself back into good graces with Met fans. But when you start talking about your best friend and the rich owner, and the other thing, like I was telling you yesterday, I don't know what they're doing with Robinson Cano. I don't know what this would do to Jeff McNeil. I don't know how the internal, politics of the team are affected by all of these comments by Francisco Lindor. Like, I want my best friend here. I'm a what? Wait a minute. So we have a second baseman, and we have another second baseman that's coming back.
Right, and you haven't earned the fact to be pointing at players and telling the team to sign them to long-term deals. You've been here for a year, and you've been terrible.
Right, exactly. And one other thing before we go to break here. Yesterday, out came an article by Paul Schwartz, and I love this article because it really, truly tells you who Daniel Jones is. So the article basically talked about how Daniel Jones took a bullet for the team. And what I mean by that is when Kenny Golladay was screaming on the sideline, all of us just assumed that he was screaming at Daniel Jones, that he was yelling at him to throw him the ball and all of that other stuff. And you and I came in here Monday morning, we were railing on Kenny Golladay and blah, 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 and going on and going forth. And what did Daniel Jones do after the game? Daniel Jones said, me and Kenny got a great relationship. Everything's fine. We're going to be good. We're going to move forward. And as if Daniel Jones was taking Kenny Galladay's slings and arrows in public and just being a good guy and just being a good team leader. Then it comes out that Kenny Golladay wasn't yelling at Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones just happened to be in front of the guy that he was yelling at, and that was Jason Garrett. And Paul Schwartz wrote this, and I think this really sometimes goes unnoticed and how important it is for a player to be this way. We find out that Kenny Golladay is screaming at offense coordinator Jason Garrett. Daniel Jones never said at any point in time after the game, hey, go ask Kenny who he was yelling at, or Kenny wasn't yelling at me, he was yelling at Jason Garrett. He never once said that. He made us all believe that he was the one that was getting the vitriol from the wide receiver, when in fact it wasn't him, and he knew it wasn't him. It was the offensive coordinator. And he never let on that that was the case. Never, ever let on that that was the case. And then they go to Slayton and they ask him about Daniel Jones. And Slayton is so effusive in his praise of Daniel Jones. It tells you now that I believe that that team has nothing but unbelievable respect for their quarterback, which is the first hurdle that you got to get over when you're the most important guy on the team.
Well, yeah, and the second hurdle is that you got to win some games and you got to be a leader, or it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Jay, look, he has been in the crosshairs of Giant fans for 3 years now, and he could have easily backed away from all of this. That kid showed some stones, and I didn't realize it until Paul Schwartz wrote about it yesterday, and I was like, man, that's the kind of kid I want to be my quarterback. Now, Joe Judge has got to get the best out of him, and hopefully he will. And we've seen really good play from him this year. There's no question about that. But I'm hoping that this is the moment that Daniel Jones now fully takes the reins as the unquestioned leader of this football team.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.